Moving into our dream house should have been the happiest day of our lives. Tucked in a quiet cul-de-sac with a view of the hills and enough room for the kids to run wild, it seemed like the kind of place you'd only see on HGTV. My wife and I worked for years to save enough. And finally, it was ours. We even baked cookies for our neighbors, trying to make a good impression. That's when we met her. Karen, president of the HOA. Blonde bob, arms permanently crossed, and a tone that could curdle milk. She didn't even introduce herself, just marched up the driveway while the movers were still unloading our boxes. "You can't just move in without checking with the HOA," she snapped. I didn't see any ID. I laughed awkwardly. ID? We just bought the house. We have the deed and everything. Want to see the paperwork? Her eyes narrowed. Paperwork doesn't prove you belong here. You should have contacted me first. My wife and I exchanged a glance. We weren't sure if she was joking or just insane. Karen stomped off without another word, but the vibe was off. We felt it in the pit of our stomachs. We were unwelcome. Later that evening, as we were setting up the living room, our 13-year-old son, Jaden, came downstairs, eyes wide. "Dad, Karen's outside again. She's talking to someone on her phone." I peeked through the blinds. Karen stood at the end of the driveway, gesturing wildly and looking right at our house. I cracked the window just enough to hear, "I'm telling you, they don't have IDs. I don't know who they are, and I don't think they belong in this neighborhood," she said to whoever was on the other end. Then came the part that made my blood run cold. "I'm calling 911. At first, I thought she was bluffing, but then Jaden, who had been watching everything from his bedroom upstairs, walked up behind me and whispered. I recorded her everything on my tablet. I turned slowly. "You what?" He nodded, eyes gleaming. She didn't know I was there. I got it all. We didn't know it then, but that recording would soon change everything. What started as a petty neighborhood conflict was about to blow up into a scandal that shook the entire HOA and exposed Karen in a way she never saw coming. 15 minutes after Karen made her threat, the red and blue lights painted our living room walls. A police cruiser crept down the street like it was hunting fugitives. 2 officers stepped out, hands near their belts, not aggressive, but cautious. Karen waved them over like she was guiding in an aircraft carrier. She pointed directly at our house. "That's them. I've never seen them before, and they refuse to show ID. I think they might be squatting." "Ma'am, you said they were trespassing," one officer asked. "Yes," Karen huffed, hands on hips. "They just showed up out of nowhere. We have strict HOA guidelines about move-ins. They're supposed to register." By then, I was already stepping out onto the porch. My wife trailed behind, trying to keep calm, but her jaw was clenched tight. I raised my hand slowly, just to be safe. "Evening, officers, we're the Thompsons. We closed on this house 3 days ago. Got the paperwork and everything." One of the officers glanced at Karen, then back at us. "Do you have some ID and proof of ownership?" "Absolutely," I said, pulling out the manila folder I had prepared. Inside, the deed, closing documents, my driver's license, even our new utility bill. Karen crossed her arms again. "That doesn't prove they're not squatting. You can fake documents, Karen." My wife snapped, finally losing patience. "Do you ever mind your own business?" The officers looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am," one said to Karen, "this looks legitimate. There's no reason to escalate this." But Karen wasn't done. "I don't feel safe. What if they're criminals pretending to be homeowners?" That's when Jaden came out onto the porch, holding his tablet like a trophy. "Hey," he said, his voice steady. "I recorded her." "Jaden, wait," I began, but he was already tapping the screen. Suddenly, the audio played for everyone to hear. "You can't just move in without checking with the HOA. I don't care what paperwork they have. I'm calling 911 and saying they don't belong here. That'll get them out. Karen's face turned from smug to pale in under 2 seconds. The officer nearest to her blinked. Ma'am, did you just admit to calling 911 under false pretenses? She stammered, I was concerned. The other officer didn't look convinced. This isn't how neighborhood watch works. You can't just weaponize emergency services. That's misuse. Karen started backpedaling, but the damage was done. Our neighbors, drawn by the flashing lights and drama, had begun gathering at the edge of their lawns. Phones were out. People were recording. Karen, HOA queen of the cul-de-sac, was unraveling in real time, and my son's recording was now evidence. Karen was frozen in place, lips twitching, clearly scrambling to spin the narrative. But it was too late. Jaden's recording had already made the rounds. One neighbor a few houses down had uploaded it to the neighborhood Facebook group. Comments were pouring in faster than Karen could open her mouth. One read, "Is this real? She called the cops because they didn't report to her." Another, "This is exactly why I've been dodging the HOA meetings for years." Karen turned to the officers, her voice suddenly saccharine. "There's been a misunderstanding. I only wanted to protect the community." "Ma'am," the older officer interrupted, clearly done with the performance. "You misrepresented a situation to emergency dispatch. That's serious. At minimum, it's a civil violation. Do you want to press charges?" The younger officer asked me, glancing between Karen and our family. That caught me off guard. I looked to my wife. She shrugged, her face hard but calm. Jaden stood there, still clutching the tablet like he was ready to hit play again if anyone doubted us. "We just want to be left alone," I said after a pause. "But if she does anything like this again, absolutely," Karen let out a weak laugh, as if this were all just a misunderstanding between friends. "Well, that's a relief. I mean, now that everything's cleared up, we can move forward, right?" Wrong. The crowd that had gathered wasn't dispersing. In fact, more people were stepping forward. An older woman named Mrs. Patel spoke up. "Karen, you reported my nephew 2 years ago when he parked in front of my house. Said he looked suspicious." Another man, Andrew from the corner house, added, "She tried to fine me for putting up Christmas lights before December. Said it violated HOA codes. Turns out it didn't." The floodgates were open now. Complaints poured out. One after another, petty fines, anonymous letters, social media slander, all traced back to Karen. Her power wasn't just slipping, it was collapsing. "You've been bullying people for years," someone shouted from the crowd. "I move we vote her out of the HOA," said another. Karen's eyes darted around. "You can't do that without a meeting." "There are procedures," she said. Someone else shouted, "Then let's schedule one tomorrow." Karen stormed off in a fury, but even as she retreated, she knew it was over. Her reign as HOA president, self-imposed, self-important, and self-righteous, was finally being challenged. Back inside, I gave Jaden a high five. "Kid, you might have just saved this whole neighborhood." He grinned. I just pressed record. The emergency HOA meeting took place 2 days later. It wasn't held in someone's cozy living room like the old days. It was at the community center, and it was packed. Word had spread like wildfire, thanks to the now viral video of Karen's 911 call and my son's recording. It even made a local news segment titled HOA Harassment. Power trip or public safety? Karen sat stiffly at the front table, trying to act composed, but her usual air of superiority was gone. Her supporters, what few she had, looked uncomfortable. The rest of the room, let's just say no one was there to defend her. The HOA bylaws were clear. If enough members called for a vote of no confidence, a new election could be triggered. And that's exactly what happened. One by one, neighbors stepped up to the mic to share their grievances. I was fined $50 for planting tulips that weren't approved, one woman said. She told my daughter her dog was too aggressive because it barked once, another man shared. Someone else added, she warned me not to have garage sales. Said it attracted the wrong crowd. When it was my turn, I walked up with Jaden beside me. I didn't even need to say much. We moved here hoping to find a peaceful community, I said simply. Instead, we were met with hostility and intimidation. She weaponized fear and authority over a harmless family just trying to unpack. Then I turned to Jaden. Want to play it one more time? He hit play. The recording echoed through the room, crystal clear. By the end, people were shaking their heads in disbelief. A few even booed. That was the final straw. The vote was held right there. The result? 86 in favor of her removal, 3 against, 2 abstained. Karen stood up, red-faced, her voice shaking. You're all going to regret this. I kept this place in order. No, someone called back. You kept it under your control. The applause was thunderous as she stormed out. Her reign officially over. For the first time since we moved in, I felt a wave of relief. A week later, the new HOA board, elected fairly and with full transparency, welcomed us personally with cookies and smiles, real ones, the kind not followed by threats or citations. Jaden became a bit of a neighborhood legend. People started jokingly calling him the mic drop kid. Someone even gave him a shirt that said, always recording, in big, bold letters. We came here looking for peace. We got a battle instead, but in the end, truth won out, and it all started with a 13-year-old kid and his tablet. If you think Karen got what she deserved, hit that like button. What would you have done if someone called 911 on your family like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that prove the truth always comes out. Sometimes from a kid with a tablet. New episodes every week. Hit the bell so you never miss the next one.